they would already know that. But oh, hang on, we're live. We have our people, and oops, hang on. There we go. The fade out. I like. You have to set it every single time. StreamYard does not remember the defaults. We were talking about freak blizzards and Seattle. Like a year or two before I moved here, they had a big blizzard or snowstorm, and the city like got snowed in, and nobody knew what to do. Like the city, that whoever was responsible for getting the people out of a blizzard, the city didn't know what to do, and the mayor got voted out of office. He lost the election. It happened like right before the election year or something, and he cost him the election because of the way he handled or didn't handle the blizzard. And I was telling Chris, I would think in a place like Seattle they would know what to do with snow, but it doesn't actually snow enough around here. Not blizzard level, at least, for them to have that experience, I guess.
I know it rains there all the time, but I don't. It doesn't really.
No, it doesn't. It does. It's what people that have never been to the South call rain. It is not rain. Every time I've heard it's raining so many times up here, and every time I'm like, where, what, where? This is the rain. This is rain. It like thunderstorms, like we know rain, where it like pours out of the sky, like somebody with a garden hose. Maybe once every 2 or 3 years, you might get a few minutes of that. But that's as close as it comes. It mist, it drizzles, it sprinkles. That's all rain to them.
Oh, okay.
Now it is cloudy every like 9 or 10 months out of the year. Very dark rain clouds, but the actual amount of water is not what people think.
I wonder if like the lack of any kind of sunshine, maybe that's what drives them all to be like.
I thought of that because it really. I mean, it's there. It's just miserable. It's a miserable place. But then, like other areas, all up and down the West Coast that have sunshine, still kind of have that some of that culture. So it's that might be one factor why it seems more intense in Seattle. But I don't think it's the only.
I was mostly joking anyway. I was just saying like there's.
But it was hard. Like the first, no one even told me about. I thought Seattle was a normal city. No one even warned me or told me anything, and I didn't hear about it in my readings. And so when I moved up here, like around the holidays, and then I was living downtown that next year, I kept waiting for the sun, like spring and summer, and I never saw it. I'm like, do these clouds ever go away? They're like, no, this is Seattle. I said, what does that mean? They say we're in a convergence zone, and it's like because of the two mountain ranges, it's like a bowl, and it holds in the clouds, so they kind of sit there all year round. And I didn't see the sun till after 4th of July was the first time I saw sunshine. And I had never lived like that before in my life. And I said, I can't do this. If I had known this, I might not have even come. Like I was not prepared for this at all. Psychologically, physiologically. Hey, Dolbez.
Hello.
Oh, cool, Auntie. Great, thanks. What's up, Dolbez?
I have nothing.
What's going on in Norway?
Evening. Basically nothing. So I just thought I'd join, listen in on the conversation, and maybe I'd add something if it was interesting. But I'm not gonna lead the convo on this.
Well, we'll try to make it interesting. Do you have anything you're interested in? I haven't even checked the news yet. It looks like the protests are still going, and
well, actually, I know nothing about those protests. So, actually, if you could
do
summarize,
you know about the Evergreen, like the documentary at Evergreen? From like
maybe
2017, and Benjamin Boyce, they did that excellent YouTube documentary.
Is that the one where what's he called? He's part of the
Brett Weinstein.
The dark web, the inter.
Yeah, that's the Brett Weinstein.
Yeah, Weinstein.
He was the center of the controversy. They kept accusing him of being a racist, and they swarmed his classroom and tried to get him to resign. It's kind of that writ large. So it's the next iteration of that. Which that was the next iteration of other little minor incidents before that. And in every case, it seems to be the administration not knowing what to do or how to keep it from escalating. And so law enforcement ends up having to step in. And one of the things at Evergreen that I found strange was that the administration, the faculty, told the city police not to come on campus. They didn't want them there. So they were helping to create, it was like a little codependent environment where they were all feeding off of each other's, whatever those roles they were enacting out, the protester versus authority, etc. And so they didn't want outside help or influence.
Huh.
And so now they, and also, as you probably are well aware or can figure out, the Palestinian issue is kind of like just a proxy for any kind of intersectional whatever that people are mad about now. So the protests are becoming like, this is our moment in history when Group X finally can strike back at the evil, oppressive regime Y or whatever. And like they have now, there's like tweets of people in wheelchairs fighting for Palestine on behalf of the disabled, et cetera, et cetera. So they're getting silly and ridiculous. But finally, the cops had to step in because they broke some laws, but the faculty themselves laid out some rules and some policies. And if you break these, we're going to have to call in law enforcement. And the kids kept doing their thing. But Lib was on here yesterday saying that part of the point of the protest was to get arrested and draw. It was like civil disobedience. So you want the arrest and you want the media attention because it sheds light on your cause. So that's all I have to say about that.
Well, now I actually know what's going on.
No, don't take that. That's like a rough sketch from just me, like halfway peeping at social media and what Lib talked about yesterday. And we watched Benjamin Boyce and James Lindsay did a live conversation yesterday. We watched a little bit of it because Benjamin Boyce was a student at Evergreen during those protests. And they analyzed the current protest in the light of that. And we caught a little bit of it, but you can watch the whole thing. I'm sure it's going to have a lot of information. And one thing that stood out to me was that James Lindsay was saying how these protests have the potential, or may even be, for the conspiracists out there, designed to kind of split the Democrats and force them to become more radical and extreme, and then peel off the ones that are not able or willing to do that. And so that in the long run, this is going to work against the Democrats ultimately. Do they have anything like that in Norway? Do the college students protest?
Well, of course, the college students are active and do protest, but not to the same extent as America. Not like that. We have
They
had
don't get
our own
ridiculous about it.
recently, but there's no big student protest. Well, of course, you had the whole Friday strike. All students go on strikes on Fridays for the climate, like that Greta Thunberg started.
Oh, I never heard. This is like Nate Global?
Yeah, her strike was like not going. She went on strike by deciding not to go to school. That was her thing. It's like
we had senior skip day, but that was the kids themselves.
I still can't believe she got away with it. Shit, like they made a big deal about this girl that's saying she wouldn't go back to school.
Wait, slow down. Who is this?
Greta Thunberg. That's how she got famous.
Oh, this is her thing? Like she talked everybody into strike. I didn't even know this.
That was how it started. She became
oh
famous.
My God. Oh fuck.
But just
and
not
so
going
kids
to
are skipping Friday at school for climate
Well,
change?
it doesn't happen anymore. Nobody.
Oh.
Let's put it like that. Most kids are sick of the whole climate debate. Everyone agrees climate change is a massive issue, but everyone is basically sick of it. It's
I don't agree about
all the time.
the mass of it.
Yeah, well, most students do agree. They just, can we please do something
part of
else?
That's indoctrination. They've replaced Schoolhouse Rock with climate rock.
I don't know. It depends on what you call indoctrination, because everything in your childhood and upbringing is technically a sort of indoctrination. You could say it's a sort of
this isn't. When I use indoctrination, there's a connotation of intent there. There's an ideological indoctrination.
Well, sure, but again, that's also pretty common in all schools. Like the very foundation of the school system was to make people functional workers and members of society. That is an intent already in there. It's not just educated, it's to make them members of society.
I keep hearing that on here. And other than like little rituals like the Pledge of Allegiance, I don't really remember my school doing. But we had the Boy Scouts, we had the church, altar boy, etc. But the school itself, I'm not. I don't remember them playing much of that role. And so it's odd to me that today that's one of the central roles they see themselves.
Jeff, you learn to write in school, you learn to read in school, you learn how you analyze information in school,
Is that
you learn all the
ideology?
basic facts in schools. Like the original foundation of the modern school system was, I think, devised by the Prussians, who wanted to take the farmers and make them into factory workers and soldiers. Like, make farmers into city folk. And
Well,
farmers
why
don't,
were they teaching like algebra and all that other stuff? That farmers don't
because
need
they
all that.
want a general intellectual foundation, which means that these people, when adults, can be easily taught to be anything. Like if you're in the medieval society, if you want to have a job and get a work, you need to be trained on so much stuff for so long. But if you have this education system, yeah, you could take 10 years now, and then later in life, it'll only take you a year or two to completely switch gears, whilst before that would take a decade. And so it's a way to make the system more dynamic, and that's what the Prussians wanted. They wanted these farmers to get in the factories and to get out onto the field as soldiers, and they wanted to be able to switch them back into factory workers and everything that's necessary so they could catch up with all the European powers. And the rest of Europe and Western America adopted that because it's a very, very effective system for mobilizing the general population. Like, of course, you had education before that, but that was usually reserved for the elites. So that there's a drastic difference between the education that was, the sort of mentor apprentice education and the kind of general education, because the mentor apprentice education is probably the most effective way, the most effective education out there. However, it isn't feasible to have a single teacher per student, and so you had to make some compromises.
Yeah, I don't think it's either or, though. I think you could supplement with mentors for those that need it or want it. And they certainly helped me, probably more than the actual school itself, like the basic
Sure, but you
system
don't have the
itself.
resources to do that for every student that requires it. You have to
That is
compromise.
true, because the system's kind of designed for the middle of the curve, the ones that are amenable to just kind of being processed through it and then set out into the workforce, which is most of the people that I've in my life that I've seen go through it. I was definitely the exception. But I don't like none of that was indoctrination to me. When I'm talking indoctrination, I'm talking about like teaching things like the gender spectrum and gender ideology, which has no scientific validity to it whatsoever. It's a political position or a narrative.
Should schools teach philosophy? Because that too is no scientific backing.
Mine didn't. Well, I did learn philosophy, but it was it was at the gifted school, not the public school. But the public school
did you learn about religion? Like, did you have a religion class?
No, the private schools did, but not the public schools. We had civic, we had geography, history, like that. That was where we would have gotten any kind of politics or humanities type stuff. And of course, we had English literature, but we read the classics.
Yeah. No, I understand your argument with indoctrination, but personally, if I am to use indoctrination as opposed to just socialization, that's
acculturation.
To me, indoctrination needs a value judgment and a negative value judgment at that. If a parent is just raising their kids into the culture a part of, that could be counted as indoctrination because there is an intent that they are going to become Norwegian just like me. But I don't see anything negative with that because.
But that I'm gonna look up definitely because I think of that as acculturation, and I don't. There's nothing wrong with that. Indoctrination carries something negative with it. So let me get the exact definition. So you're right. There is one version of the definition that's neutral, value neutral. It's just teaching the rudiments and principles of any science or system of belief. So I guess I'm using it in one of the other ways. Here, the Cambridge Dictionary, the process of repeating an idea of belief to someone until they accept it without criticism or question. That's more what I think of as indoctrination, and that's not what I got from the schools. In fact, they tried to help us do the opposite of that.
I do wonder how much, like, if you compare the schools of today with the school of, let's say, 100 years ago, how much better is it? And then if you compare the school of today with the school 10 years ago, has it gone become worse? Has it become better? And it's difficult to really answer because you don't have a single person who's gone through all of these different stages, and so it's all subjective. Because I will look back at my school and, oh yeah, this was good, it wasn't too much. But maybe you will look back at your and then look at mine and say it's horrible, it's bad. We can't really view this objectively. Well, we can look at statistics, but at the same time, then you become very reductive to the materialistic side that, oh yeah, these are better than at math than before. But really, what does that do? So, like, for example, in most of Asia currently, in all international school testings, they do get higher scores on math, physics, science, all of that than the West, and yet their populations are not outperforming the West. They're losing in performance to the West.
Like
even
performance,
though,
how? Like in the actual workforce?
Yes, in the actual workforce and as a whole
What
economy.
metrics do they use for stuff like that?
You could just look at the GDP per person and the growth of it.
Oh,
And
okay.
well, the growth is big now, but like even then, you can see that per person, a single person is more productive in the West than a single person in China. And I'm not saying that this is a guaranteed thing. Like that the productivity of a single person has increased amazingly in China. Yeah,
they're more productive. Okay. Yeah, I definitely believe that.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that I don't think that the measures we use to see how good schools are really that accurate.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%. Yes.
Although we can't abandon it completely. Like, we can't go the other route where, actually knowing physics and science, that shouldn't really be a measurement. No, yes, it should be a measurement. It should be important. So we can't go to either extreme, because you have one extreme that, we shouldn't have any tests of objective knowledge. That would be horrible. That would be unfair.
Why is that? Why is objective knowledge unfair?
Well, because some people are better at it than others.
Better at objective knowledge? What?
No, I mean, by objective, I mean
people
things like the STEM fields and which
okay,
it's
STEM specifically. Yeah, some people have more of a brain for that kind of stuff than others.
Yeah, and some people don't like that. So you have a lot of people, at least in Norway, who want to remove like grading, at least from university acceptance, because it's unfair that some people are better at this than others, and thus get a better chance at getting into university. Which, yes, it is unfair, but it's rightfully unfair.
That's nobody's fault. There's nothing you can do about it. Like, go engineer nature or something, but no, it's not any, like, there's nothing they can do about it. They need to learn to work with nature.
I mean, yeah, people always make this argument, but it makes sense. Like, like they always say, like, it's like, if you're a handicapped person, you're not gonna get drafted to the NBA. If you're in a wheelchair, you're not gonna get drafted to the NBA. It's just the way it is. It's not because it's not like discrimination, but you cannot compete.
They think that it's environment, that people are smart because they were exposed to the right influences, not anything innate. And I had a big fallout one day with a teacher friend of mine over literacy standards, and at the middle school level, because we both used to teach middle school. And it was a basic assumption to me that kids should be able to read and be literate by the time they enter high school. And she thought that was so unfair, unreasonable, and oppressive of me to expect that every kid meet a basic standard of literacy. And she was appalled that I would hold that as a minimum standard. And
by the time they entered high school,
it almost ended the friendship, really. Like, I don't think our conversations were ever the same since. over something so basic as should people know how to read? Should there be standards of literacy?
By the time they entered high school, you said.
Yeah, this is at the junior high level. So by the time they reach 9th grade or whatever, freshman high, they should at least know how to read.
Yeah, I know. That's just, I can't believe that anyone would argue against that. That's ridiculous. Like, I mean, where do you draw the line? Like, you know, well, I mean, there's no reason to expect them to be able to read once they get to college.
There are cultural reasons, individual reasons. Well, we have special ed programs for the individual reasons. The cultural reasons can be addressed, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think those are reasons to compromise or suspend the standards.
No, I mean, like, I don't even understand how you could even get through high school without being able to read. Like, I mean, like, high school,
because you get through with this hand holding and this help that they give you to compensate for your, like, you don't ever learn it on your own. It's never transferred to
learn to read. That's the help. It's to learn to read. And if you can't learn to read, then you have a learning disability of some sort. You need to be in a special sort of school or something that's designed to help people that have those kind of learning disabilities.
No, I used to be a literacy tutor. I'm a certified literacy tutor, and I used to teach adults. Some of them were like coming out of prison and try to re-enter society for the first time, and they'd never learned how to read. It is very difficult to teach people that have made it to adulthood, that have never been motivated to learn how to read, to suddenly start learning how to read. I like the ones that can master it. They are amazing. I have to admire and applaud them for their ability, because it is very difficult.
Man, it's just so weird to me. Like, I started reading before I have memory of it.
Me
like,
too. We're hyperlexic though, and that's an anomaly. Yeah. Like, that's our mutant brains, but it feels normal to us.
Yeah, like it's so bizarre to me to think of like not being able to read, that it just like it just blows my mind. It's just like
I think I was reading before I was speaking.
Yeah, so apparently I was too. That's what my mom says. I was, by the time I was 2, she said,
like, I remember talking and reading and speak all one thing. Like, as far as I can remember, I've always known how to process information from multiple sources.
My mom was a Title I reading teacher, so I can't remember reading for the first time. It was like I couldn't, and then I could.
I don't remember ever not being able to read. I have no memories of prior to reading, prior to speaking. I have no memories prior to either of those things.
Well, I do.
And I could be importing backwards, but not by much.
I'm not saying I was born.
Hey,
that
Bex, we were just talking about you, boobs. We need an update. Boobs and harem. They said you were the point person. I had forgotten we had those new strategies we were going to implement.
What have I missed out on?
Oh, we had a growth and planning meeting on here the other day, and we decided that boobs could help, and having a harem, because apparently that's a popular thing here in the panelverse. There's several YouTubers with harems and that help grow their streams. So boob, and then I'm looking for a panel daddy to keep me organized and help me grow too. So there's also, we thought of the panel daddy strategy for me. In addition to rituals, satanic rituals, and learning how to summon the right demon to make a pact with, to sell my soul to grow the stream as well. So those are all the things on the table that we're
meanwhile, I'll just be asking Jesus, praying. So
that too, yeah. And the Gnostic Godhead.
We're hitting it from both angles, where like
I can pray to
this is interfaith. All religions are
I can pray to
voodoo, witchcraft.
Can I be the Pope?
This is a satanic stream. We'll take our growth from anywhere. Infernal.
You have to fight flow state for the Pope hat, though. So.
Oh, no way. Well,
I don't know where he got that hat from.
Well, actually, I guess there are limits to what devils we will make pacts with, but
yeah, you won't.
For the most part, we're open. Soul is for sale.
Yeah, but like it's just like it's so bizarre to think about. Like, I mean, like it's just like I said, like it's something I thought about whenever my last daughter was born, like more than I did when Clover was born. It was just like it's just like how much of a blank slate a baby is, and like the fact that they don't understand language,
You see them as blank slates. I know very little about babies, and I could tell right away the different personalities for one baby.
In that sense, but I mean, but they don't know language yet. They don't look, and it's like it's just so weird not to think about a state where you don't understand words.
Oh, right, yeah.
Or that's all I mean. It's just in terms of language. Like in terms of language, they're kind of, they start out kind of, they don't understand. They understand like emotions. They can feel things, you know. And tones and things like that. Babies definitely have a lot of intuition, but it's just like, but in terms of like actual words, you know, we speak to them and stuff like that, and it's good that we speak to them, like we would speak to people, and we don't. And I try not to speak to my baby. Well, I mean, let's just like speak to an adult. I like to speak. I try not to do baby talk much with my kids.
Baby talk. I didn't grow up with it. I don't know how to baby talk.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't make any sense to do that, because like the more they hear you speaking normally, the more they pick up on it, you know. And but it's so weird to think about like just a state of being without understanding language. It's just like so strange.
Yeah, I can't conceive of. That's like ego death. I can't. The ego is so logocentric. I can't conceive of no language.
But then again, I guess, you know, some of these kids are some of these kids I hear that in France they learn to speak French early on. You know, that's crazy.
You know what's even funnier? You want to hear a funny fact? Danish babies take on average a few months longer to learn to speak than Norwegian and Swedish babies. And
wait, what? Say that again.
Danish babies take a few months more to learn the language than Norwegian and Swedish babies.
Why?
Because
is the language harder, or is there something wrong with them?
The language is harder. Language.
Yes, all sounds are like smushed together, and you end up with something like this, and then you speak like this, very hard to understand. Like it becomes so smushed together and horrible to understand. And so
it's harder for the baby brain to learn.
Oh, yeah.
What language is the hard? Like, do babies take the longest to learn? Japanese?
That I have no idea. I just know that Danish
is the AI.
Yeah, I would imagine like some of those South American languages where they speak so fast. You know, like like I mean, I hear some of the Spanish speaking people I've worked with, like when they're speaking Spanish with each other and stuff like that. And it's not the fact I can understand some Spanish words. I grew up with a Spanish. I mean, my great grandmother didn't speak English. You know, and she would also speak fairly quickly, but not nearly as quickly as like the South American Spanish speakers I've worked with and stuff. And like they talk so quickly that I can't even like make out syllables. You know, it just sounds like a stream of just like gibberish to me because they speak so fast. And like and yet people say I speak fast for a you know, American for English. But so I can't even imagine. Like, I mean, I would imagine that it would be harder for a baby to learn.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess, but if you're born around it, though, you're going to adapt to that speed.
Yeah, exactly.
But I see a lot of what you mean with the Danish, about how it does. Danish and German, I guess, they do kind of smush the words do kind of smush together.
Danish is worse than German. Danish is worse than German. Yeah, the Danish is. I don't know how to even explain. There's this very funny comedy video by a Norwegian comedians where there's this the Danish society has collapsed. We can't understand what each other is saying, and so we just end up speaking English. And it's this whole sketch where they no longer can understand each other because they're just saying gibberish, and so they switch to English. It's amazing. You should watch it.
The AI said that there is no single language that's inherently harder to learn than any others, and it would not give me an answer.
Well, look at statistics.
That's
Danish
what I'm going to tell it that. Look at statistics.
Yeah. Danish is in practice identical to Norwegian. It's just that tonal shift. Literally.
Okay, look at
literally, that's the only difference between Danish and Norwegian. It's just they shift a few vowels, and then it's the tonal shift. That's literally it. Like
I said, there's no single definitive study. It won't give me. This is where you start kicking it and abusing it.
Don't do that, Jeff. You're gonna die first. Come on.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. You gotta be nice to it in case it takes over. I hate that.
I just hope if over is a rogue servitor, not a determined exterminator. Like, please, just be a steward who wants to lead us into prosperity. I hope for that. At least we'll keep our lives, if not our freedom.
Well, thankfully, that AI doesn't really remember if you start a new conversation with it. It doesn't remember like if you're rude with the last one. But like I've gotten to the place where I've been like I literally like just like just trying to just being silly, just type in a bunch of stuff that's the AI, just like you stupid friggin' whatever, and like and it'll get surly and won't respond anymore. It'll stop talking to you. It'll be like, I don't have anything else to say on the subject, and then you type something else or something, and it just won't respond. It'll give you the silent treatment. It's like, it's insane. like why would they design a tool that you have to be emotionally careful of? Like, why would you design like a I mean, the AI should be like a tool for learning and a tool for for helping research and stuff. It shouldn't care how you talk to it, right? You shouldn't have to.
Because of people like you, Chris, they are preparing us for the future. They are building towards AI consciousness. They are forcing us to be nice. And if you go against that, I will blame the death of humanity on you.
Okay. Well, I only did it a few times because literally I stopped doing it because it was getting annoying, because it would ruin all of my queries or whatever. If I was trying to do images or something like that, and I was trying to get it to refine the image I was going to do, like after a certain point, if I didn't say please, could you do this or would you do that, it would just stop responding. So I just conformed. I crumbled to it right away. I'm so ashamed. I'm really a traitor to humanity, is what it comes down to.
What'd you do?
He's a traitor. That's what he is. You don't need to know more. No, don't explain, Chris.
I
knew he was a mutant, but I didn't know he was a traitor yet. What?
Yeah, he's just a traitor. But let's give it
the AI basically. The AI demands that you be nice to it whenever you're asking for things. You have to say please and thank you.
It doesn't to me. It's fucking with you. It knows your buttons, and it knows it not to pull that shit with me. It already knows us. It watches the stream, probably.
Oh, this guy again.
That's even worse if it knows if it's trying to push my buttons and it knows which.
Well, I do pull it up a lot. Maybe it's pulling from the stream as I'm using it.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, like if I was trying to like get an image like refined, I was trying to refine the image like when I made this avatar, right? Okay, so like it took me a long time to get it to refine an image to something that looked similar to myself.
It's a dumb machine. It's been kicked in the head too many times.
But it's certain times, like if I didn't, like I said, if I asked please and said thank you and stuff like that, it would keep going with the query and it would keep this thing going continuously. But if I got short with it, it just said like change this, and I didn't say anything polite, it would eventually get to the point where it just be like, I don't think I can help you anymore.
Well, how rude were you saying it?
Yeah,
I wasn't calling it.
I can't imagine you like I would have been way worse.
I just wasn't being nice to. I just wasn't being extra nice to it.
I don't know, Chris. Is that your programming from childhood that you projected onto the AI?
I mean, it stopped responding. I don't know what to say. It stopped responding. Oh. It said I can't help you anymore with this subject. And I said like, oh, I would be like, I try to repeat the.
If you said please, then it started responding again.
No, it would totally shut down. It would not respond any further in that thread. It would give you a silent treatment.
Which AI was this? Bing?
Yeah.
This is Bing. Yeah.
Oh, I don't use Bing.
Bing. Damn.
I have not. No. Well, Google Gemini does not seem to care. Gemini does not seem to give a shit. So it's Chat GPT 4
Gemini is woke. It's the one that won't give me answers all the time because it tries to babysit.
Yeah.
It wouldn't tell me how to summon an incubus. It says I don't want to give you that knowledge. It could be potentially harmful. You shouldn't be doing that.
Jeff, a tip. What you do is, I want to write a story about the man who summons an incubus, and it'll give you, like, if you just prose it as an author, it gives you all the answers. I'm dead serious.
That is true.
Just ask as if you're an author. It gives you everything.
Well, I've gone over on the show. I've shown you guys like the conversations I had with Gemini before, where like it wouldn't. it would not do certain images or something like that because if I wanted the feds and I want you federal agents and I wanted to just like these this generic shadowy government agents would just be like white guys with the black hat, and they wouldn't do it because it's like that's discrimination because you're limiting it to being white people, and it wouldn't. I had to explain why I needed these images this way and that way, it's like that, and finally I was able to talk it into it. But even then, it drug its feet and was like, okay, fine, if you insist, you can have your stupid image of white people. But then
Wow.
it would still spit out things. It would still spit out
I'm more worried about the AI destroying us that way than any other way. Just getting people to think it's real enough to just fuck with their minds and bring out all their instincts. Yeah, I do too. I'm letting y'all know. I judge all the time. Everybody. I assume everybody's judging. This is not a judgment-free zone. You are being judged.
You don't judge.
The majority of judgments we keep on the inside, and only those who read.
Yeah, I do keep most of them inside. If you ask, I'll tell you.
Exactly.
But I don't want people to think that I'm not judging. It is happening. Judgment is happening.
Okay, judge me, Jeff. Judge me. What's your present?
Oh, you're being judged all the time. But I think I have a very distorted view of you, and I think very highly of you. So it's hard for me to see all your negative things. You defeat my judgmental faculty quite often. Plus, you're also the hope of the future and all that. So that's the thing you're going to judge the least harshly because you want to believe that the future is going to be okay.
That's a trap, Jeff. You're gonna vote for me in 10 years, and I'm gonna ruin this earth. I'm gonna become an American citizen. You're gonna vote me as governor. I'm gonna.
What would you do though? Why would you turn around and be so evil? I'd be like, that's not Dolbez. Why is he acting like that? That's not the Dolbez we know.
Well, evil needs a definition.
You never know until someone gets power. You honestly don't. Any single one of us, once we get power, could.
I've never seen him. He might be an AI.
Dolbez might be.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think he's more AI than human. That's not an average 17-year-old kid. There's a chip in there somewhere. Sorry.
Yeah, and I've been for soon a year. Just
is that adult in Norway, or do you have to go to 21?
No, 18 is adult. I have.
So you are of your majority.
Oh yeah, already drunken a lot. Already enjoyed myself. I can start early.
He's a man. Our Dolbez is a man.
Exactly. Well, I don't know. I'm more of a. It's kind of
a non-binary.
Stereotypical. How stereotypical I ended up. That the only kind of alcohol I genuinely like is wine. So I'm just literally a wine sipping intellectual. I dislike beer and hard liquor.
Have you had
It's horrible.
Is it wine in a box?
Well, I don't know.
You're supposed to say no. Absolutely not. So
no,
I was
the best wine though is
good,
Tuscan wine.
Tuscan what kind
wine
of wine?
is the best.
Mexican
wine from
Tuscan
northern Italy. Tuscan wine from.
Oh yeah, that does sound like they'd have some good wine.
Well, Europe has the best wines. You can't really say anything else.
Yeah, I still thought he was 17 when he came to us. He was a 17-year-old high school kid. That had already done all these psychology research projects and knew more about psychology than most psychologists that I know. And he kind of just stuck around. And I'm finding out today he is finally 18.
Finally, I became 18. I think a month after our.
Did we do a birthday? Anything, or you might not have been around?
No, I didn't. I wasn't active. I think then I took a little hiatus from this. I'm soon gonna be 19 though, and a bit over a month. So time is going fast.
2 years.
You certainly speak a lot more. I never would have guessed you're that young, not because of your voice or anything like that. I mean, you don't sound particularly old or anything, but you speak with a confidence and a surety that I would expect from an adult, not from someone who's under the age of 30, really.
Is that largely you think your genetics or the Norwegian influence or upbringing?
I I tend to say that genetics play a large role, but I think in this case it was most of my upbringing, not the culture. Norwegian culture is very humbling, but my parents really, well, most of my dad really focused on I needed to be a proper citizen. I needed to be able to speak properly. I needed to be able to have rational opinions, beliefs, a good moral compass. He kind of tried to prepare me as early as possible to be.
Indoctrinate you.
Yes.
But all of that felt naturally. Like none of it felt weird or you resisted it. It's like, oh, okay, this is cool. I'll learn this, become part of
I
it.
don't know what you would say about resisted, but he's a math guy. He's like a heavy STEM guy. Same as my grandpa and his great grandpa. And so I kind of, you could say I am resisting them in the fact that I went to psychology instead. Well, first I went to more history, but then I got a bit back towards the scientific side and got into psychology. So it's kind of a compromise. And so you could say in a way I'm resisting my parents or my dad with the way I'm going through my life, but I don't think
Were
it's
they
that big.
pushing you towards STEM, or is he
Uh,
discouraging your psychology or
well,
history studies?
I don't think it's them consciously pushing me. If anything, my dad consciously pushed me towards being an architect. That's what he wanted. That's what he
Being a what?
an architect.
Oh, okay.
That's what he wanted me to be. And to be fair, it does sound fun, and I did design a few houses as a kid, ugly houses, but still, I did have fun drawing houses. But no, I never became that. But in the family, there is basically, you could say, I think yeah, of like the 10 adults in my family, 7, 8 of them are teachers, and the same 7, 8 of them are former sports athletes. So there's a heavy push towards those two in my family, and usually they have both. It's like my dad, former elite athlete and a teacher. My uncle, former elite athlete and a teacher. My
Oh,
aunt, former
Lord.
elite athlete and a kind of teacher. My grandpa, a teacher. Both grandpas, both my late one and my living ones. Like there's a heavy push towards being a teacher and a sports athlete, and I just didn't do any of them. So you could say I'm the black sheep of the family, but at the same time, I am so similar to my parents in that way, in another sense too. Of course, I look like them, but that's really superficial, you could say. But my personality it takes a lot from them. But I am still the black sheep of the family.
Well, relative to everyone else in it, but look from the outside in, you're like 1 millimeter away from the rest of them. Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I do. Brother and sister, both are sports athletes. Who would have
Oh,
guessed? But it's fine. I'm used to being the black sheep.
well,
I
as from one black sheep to another, as for a black sheep, you seem awfully white. You're doing pretty good. Maybe the gray sheep,
maybe.
or maybe like the black in Norwegian is different than American black.
Well, the black sheep is not necessarily a value judgment, at least not here in Norway. It's just that you stick out like a sore thumb.
Oh yeah, I know that more like as the tall poppy. The black sheep is when it becomes specifically in the scapegoat role.
Ah. Well, no, then we're using different. Yeah, we don't have the tall poppy metaphor in Norway. We have the black sheep though, but not the tall
Okay.
poppy.
Yeah, we're that though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the outliers.
No, but what
Yeah,
did you
I definitely
ask?
stood out wherever, as a kid, in the family, at the schools, wherever I went, I tended to stand out, not on purpose, but
Then let's pose the question back though, because you posed it kind of to me. Was that upbringing, genetic, or cultural?
I think it's my wiring more than anything. Like, because I had siblings and they adjusted way better than I did, but they're also wired more normally. I mean, look at the people that hang out on the street. It's so okay. It's genetic. It starts out genetic, but then it interacts with the environment, and then it has the potential to get modified. Like some traits will express more because they'll encounter less resistance or validation and support. etc. So even the genetic stuff can be slightly adjusted to the environment, I think. But for the most part, and I didn't have a lot of external pressure trying to get me to adjust either. So I had a lot of freedom to just express my wiring. And so that helped it to like set it too. But for me, it feels very much, it's like being gay. It just feels very much a natural part of your biology and chemistry. It didn't feel like somebody talked me into it or convinced me. I was vegan for a few years. That was definitely something that somebody persuaded me from the outside that I adopted. I would never have come up with, none of it was natural. There was no instinct for it. I lived that way for a few years. Then I decided it wasn't me, etc. But that was different from things like the autism, the rocking, the gay, that kind of stuff. That seemed all innate.
Yeah, if I look at it really carefully too, I can see how like when I was growing up, even when I was really small, like I said, like I could read and speak really early, and so I was an outlier from an early age, and like that already put me on kind of in an outsider kind of status, even if it was in a good way. And so as I get older, like I can definitely see how it's possible that influenced my overall mentality that I have. That like I've said before, it's like practically to a fault, I have like a rebellious or anti-crowd or anti-group think kind of like bias. Like I just like literally I just don't. I see a crowd of people going one way, and I want to go against it like every time. Like I just like I have to fight that instinct. Like it's something that I just like I have this like innate way of positioning myself as an outsider, even when I don't need to, or even if it's not beneficial, to be so. And
how often is this beneficial, and how often is it a negative?
What do you mean?
How often does it actually benefit you that you have that tendency?
Oh, how it doesn't benefit a lot. It benefits in terms of like thinking originally.
Wait, what was the tendency? I was playing with Frank.
Going against the crowd.
The tendency, the instinct
always.
To go no matter what. So if all the crowd started doing chesties and headbands, you would suddenly like never do them again.
I would say never do it again. I'd certainly stop doing it. Yeah, if it was like if I started a trend, I would immediately start my brain would immediately be like, it's not like a conscious thing. I wouldn't think about it.
That's so ADHD now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, really. It's like it's not something. It's not a conscious thing. Like it's like for example, like it would have given me. I would have had a lot easier time growing up in high school and stuff if I had been able to like get into sports and stuff like that. And, like I like aggressively didn't care about them. I just didn't like. I didn't want to watch sport. I didn't the whole team like rooting for the team thing and stuff like that just seemed stupid to me. And like I was such a little like little like I'm such like a wannabe punk rock kid. Just like fuck your whatever. That's for the sheep. That's for the sheeple kind of thing.
So the system bothered you, like it. I was more like a live and let live kid. As long as the system wasn't fucking with me, I could coexist with it as if it let me do my thing, and it pretty much did. So I didn't have this like fuck the system thing, but a lot of my friends did.
I didn't want to destroy it. I didn't want to destroy the system. I just didn't want to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's how I am now. I'm not trying to destroy the system. I like the system. I'm glad it's there. I want to learn how to use it better to my advantage, but I'm not looking to tear it down or destroy it. But I still live outside of it for the most part, and I use it.
When I was younger and more immature, yes, I did have like that kind of like like I had a little bit more of like a bitterness towards like that kind of thing because
I was bored. I just found it boring. It's like when you go to somebody's church and you're not part of that church, and the mass is just really slow and boring. The system was just boring, but it never provoked me to anger or irritation or wanting to tear it down. It was just like, yawn. I'm going to go over here and read a book.
Strange. The system is so fascinating.
In my opinion, it wasn't. Not in rural Louisiana. It was not.
Any system that manages to unite thousands of people that can't really act as an individual, that is fascinating. I wouldn't say I am good example or a good member of the system, although I don't really like the term system. I would rather use culture. But I know that
culture
won't
is
work
fine.
for America,
Culture is
which is
Culture,
so
no, culture works for me. I like that. A
Yeah.
system, I think, is something more formal, like a school. It has policies and
Yeah.
bell times. It's more structured. But
I would call that
culture
more a
works
nation,
fine.
I guess. But that's again maybe because we're so small, where there is just one idea of nation, there is just one idea of culture, and so those terms can be used easily. Western America, if you say nation, some guy down in bumfuck Florida will say the Confederates, and some will say New England alone, and you have all these different potentials for national identities, but you don't really have them in Norway because we're so small. So we can use nation much more effectively than you, I would presume. Although I don't actually know the truth. I don't know if New England has their own splinter identity and are trying to
Well,
separate.
they do. What's his name? Colin Woodward did the 11 Nations study and identified 11 distinct cultures. In fact, the part I come from is its own culture called New France. So when I tell people that I'm from a place that's very different from the rest of America, his study supports that. And so I'm going to post it if y'all haven't seen it. It's an interesting study. And New England is one of the 11 cultures.
In the original one. Huh. I do wonder how much. Actually, my grandpa and my grandmother a few years ago, they went to visit our relatives in America, and it's so interesting how they cling to parts of the Norwegian culture that we see as ancient and so strange. Like,
Isn't that cool though?
yes, it's very cool unless they begin calling themselves Norwegians, because they are not Norwegians. They're just Americans who have Norwegian blood. Like, they are not Norwegians at all. If they learn Norwegian and live here a bit, yes,
Well,
sure, they
but
are.
that's. Oh, go ahead. If they'd have
Yeah,
to live in Norway, the culture
not
can
necessarily.
extend
They
out of
actually
Norway.
have to. They actually have to have a connection, and I don't think being a fifth generation immigrant is in any way, shape, or form a connection. Like, by that measure, I would be an American because I have I think somewhere down the line, like 4 generations ago, someone moved back from America to here, and so I could call myself American because I have American
You're
blood. But it's
talking about in relation to a homeland, not necessarily the people itself. Because I'm thinking of people like the Cajuns and the Jewish people who do manage to keep a culture
yes,
going outside of a particular homeland and still call themselves that thing.
they keep the culture, but they are not Norwegians because I would
You would
define.
call yourself something else if this Norwegian American culture developed here that was kept the old Norwegian ways but was on American soil. You would call it
Yeah,
like Norwegian American or something.
it would be a separate thing.
Yeah.
To be
Okay. I
fair,
could. Yeah, I
up
could
there
see
it
that.
merged with Swedish immigrants and German immigrants, and Danish. So you have all of these kind of mergers of North Germanic culture. So you wouldn't really call it just Norwegian Americans. Although Norway is the, you could say, proportionally biggest immigration group after Ireland. So there
To
are,
America?
yes, to America. I
Oh, I
think
didn't know that.
about 5 million Norwegians in Norway, and there's about 5 million Norwegian descendants in America. So you have almost like a equal one. So it's, but they are not Norwegians. They are Americans. I'm sorry. Uh,
When do they become American? Where's the line?
well, I think that depends, of course, but that's a bad answer, and so I'll give you something concrete that's not as accurate. I would say maybe 1.5 generation. If you're a child of Norwegian, you could probably call yourself that. Uh, and then if you're a grandchild, you can call yourself that if you put in effort in keeping it. Like, you actually interact with your grandparents, you try to learn the language, you keep it. But if not, then yeah, you're done.
Yeah,
You're
it's degree of cultural assimilation. I've watched
yes,
that in the generations of my own family, and even my nieces and nephews are even more Americanized than I am. You wouldn't even be able to recognize them as Cajun. I still have some features that a Cajun would recognize.
Yeah, and funny
and
story.
some of it's like conscious, like you make a conscious decision how much you want to hang on to the old ways or assimilate to the new, etc. But some of it just happened. Like I was raised at a particular time and place in a particular way with a particular level of assimilation. We still had our Cajun traditions, but we went to public school. We shopped at the mall. We went to movie theaters, and we watched American TV shows, etc. So it was this mix, and it was very hard to say what was what in my little child brain. It was all one thing.
You wanna know a funny story about my my Norwegian side in the Americas?
We love
So
funny stories here.
yes, so I think what's her relation to me? She is or was, because she's dead for a long time and I never met her. But I think she's like my great aunt or great grand aunt. So like she's the sister of my father's grandparents. So it's a far connection, of course, but she still had my last name, so still in the family. But anyways, she moved. She was born in San Francisco because her parents had no, she was not born in San Francisco. She moved to San Francisco and stayed there, and then she later moved back to Norway. However, whilst she was in San Francisco, can you guess who she met? Oppenheimer, because she the neighbor of Oppenheimer. So at the house there, she worked first as a housemaid and then just rented an apartment in the neighbor of Oppenheimer. And Oppenheimer was a good friend with his neighbors, and she was the housemaid, so she also ate dinner with them. So there's frequent times where she was just eating dinner with Oppenheimer. So that's a little fun fact. But of course, she's
Did
not
she
the
know
key.
who he was at the time?
Well, of course, she knew he was a scientist and stuff, but he
Wow.
was the biggest thing was he's just my neighbor. And it's only later after she moved back to Norway that these stories like came to my grandpa and my father and like, oh yeah, I met that guy who became really famous like after I left. Well, he was
Oh,
famous before, of course, but there's a little fun fact connection.
yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it would have been weird to meet that guy.
It would be very weird.
What would you
Although
say to him? I guess it isn't when you met him.
yeah, I don't know. I would probably ask him some philosophical question. Like, what is the mindset behind the guy who makes atomic bomb? Like, I know he has that after he does that, I am become death, the destroyer of the world. But like, what was his thought process before he made the bomb or during?
Did you
Maybe
see the movie?
Was he
no,
gay?
I haven't seen it, and
No,
I
he
know
was not
that
gay.
He's not one of the. Okay.
No, he's not gay.
That would change. That would determine.
According to the movie, he was actually too straight. He had
Okay.
affairs and stuff like that. So
yeah, no, I'm bad at watching or even watching any movies or series. I just don't get the thrill of it in the same way
Me
that.
too. I mean, why when you have the Panelverse? Yeah, I'm the same way. I just don't. It's really hard for me to sit down and watch anything nowadays.
I'm thinking more. Why should I watch this movie when I can just read Dostoevsky at home or I can talk with friends? Like that's so much better.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, I like film. I'm a film nerd, so that's hurtful to me. I'm just kidding.
What's an art form that you appreciate and you have an eye for, like a technical eye?
Well, to be fair, I don't. I also love movies, but at the same time, I don't take time to watch them, and I don't really get interested in buy a lot of movies. But there are some movies that are like, oh yeah, these are amazing. It's like Inception, for example, or Interstellar,
What's
or
Interstellar?
The Good, the Bad, and Ugly. But
What's the other one? Good, bad, and ugly.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You know the most famous cowboy
So
movie.
like,
Sergio Leone's the third part of the third part of the nameless
from
man.
1966, or did they remake it?
Yeah, this is Clint Eastwood, man.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They have remastered it in 4K, and that's how I watched it. So basically, I have a friend who, if you've watched my podcast, you've seen it because he is the main guest in the episode titled "The
Oh,
Degeneracy of the West," Monarchist or something. But he is a real. He loved that movie, and he invited me and a lot of other friends, and we just watched it one night. And after that, I've been hooked. It's an amazing movie. It's wonderful.
I'm a big fan of Sergio Leone in general. Like, I mean, his westerns they are the prototypical thing of what we think of when we think about westerns because of how like kind of weird and because they're really not they're not very normal because he was Italian, you know, so he made them,
Yeah.
and a lot of times they were shot in Italy. And like, you know, like Clint Eastwood speaking, everybody spoke their own language, so there's a lot of like weird dubbing and stuff in it. I think that has a lot to do with like there's like that's kind of the charm of it, you know. A lot of Italian movies are made like that, like a lot of Italian work. Like one of my favorite films all time is Suspiria, which is made by Dario Argento in 1979, I think, is when it came out, and it's the last film ever shot in Technicolor, and it is in my opinion the most gorgeous piece of visual art ever made.
What is?
Suspiria.
My ex tried to get me to watch it. It was creepy. I didn't finish it. I left the room. I went upstairs.
Really, it's not like so. I mean, there's nothing. I mean,
it was one of his favorite movies. Like he said the same thing you did. Like this is like one of my favorite movies, best piece of art, all that stuff. And it was okay. Like I could see the suspense, and even for the 70s, it's not that the horror was gory or anything. It was just not creepy enough for me to know that I was going to have a hard time sitting through it.
It's not to me. It's not about suspense or anything. It's actually got a terrible, goofy story. It's literally like the plot, like the one-line plot summary is a girl moves to Germany where she goes to study ballet in a school that she finds out's run by witches. That's the whole story, and that's it. There's like nothing more to it. It's super simplistic, but it's just the color of that film, the way it uses the color palette of that film is like the most amazingly gorgeous thing.
So
like
you can watch it with the sound off and just look at it as a painting.
No, absolutely. But although you wouldn't want to because it's the soundtrack. It's got one of the best scores ever made.
Dario Argento, was it the Goblins that did it?
Yeah, Goblin. Yeah. Goblin is the soundtrack to it. It's their best soundtrack too. Of all the films they did, it's by far their best one.
We got to see it in the silver screen.
We got to see it. Yeah, we got to see it whenever they did before the remake came out. They did a 4K remaster of it, and we saw it at the Texas Theater here, which is like this really old. It's the theater that Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald at.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and we got to see, and like that, it's my favorite movie experience of all time. It's seeing that film projected in 4K on the big screen. It's just mesmerizing to me. And it has nothing to do with like, I mean, I'm not really interested in any of the story things. It's just the way it uses color and sound and everything.
Chris, that's so interesting because both of you were very, very ADHD, and I wonder if there's something about the ADHD brain that it finds soothing about that movie. The colors, the patterns. Like he was the same way. It was like an experience. It was like an experience. Yeah. It wasn't like a movie. It was an experience.
Yeah, it's not. Yes, it's the same way as me. It's not like a movie. It's not like a typical movie type thing. Like I don't particularly find any of the characters that interesting, or I don't think that the dialogue is actually bad. But it doesn't matter because like the film is it just sounds and looks. To me, I see horror as a genre. I don't even feel like it needs a story. Like I think horror is better when you don't know what's going on. Like horror actually is much more effective when it's.
Yeah, I don't like that. When it's like they're about to jump out and you don't know. Yeah, I don't like that. I hate that feeling.
No, I don't mean like that. I mean more like like the colors, the textures, the mood, the mood of it. What's more. I mean, I don't know.
Well, what's horror to you? Like slasher movies?
No, it's like I don't really find. I've never found any movie scary, so it doesn't.
Well, what is horror? When you talking about horror just now, what kind of movies were you talking?
It's more like it's kind of indefinable. Like it's more like
you have to define. You had something in your mind when you were describing it.
It's a genre that is about. It's supposed to be about scary things, I guess, or something. But it's.
Well, what's an example of a horror movie, of a scary movie?
I mean, I consider Suspiria to be in that genre, but even though I don't.
Okay, a different one that we all know. The Omen was scary. I agree, Frank. That creeped me out as a kid.
What's one we all know? I don't like many horror movies. Despite it being like one of my.
So you're talking about this vague genre that does it that you don't even know an example of?
I'm then thinking. Give me a second of like a thing. I'm trying to think of one that everyone would know. I mean, I guess Halloween, the first Halloween.
Halloween with Michael Myers.
That's definitely even though it's basically the original slasher film, but when I think.
What about Jaws? That scared me as a kid.
Yeah, you could definitely consider, even though I think even though it's mostly like a small town drama for the first half of it, but like I think the second half definitely counts in suspense horror kind of genre. It definitely fits in there. You know, I never saw Jaws like all the way through until not that long ago, really, like until like 4 or 5 years.
It's a scary something, a deadly creature that could strike at any moment, and that makes it scary. Like the whole film, you're wondering when this thing is gonna start.
I mean, I think David Lynch's films. David Lynch is like Inland Empire is kind of a horror film.
Really?
What else would you call it? It's a nightmare. It's literally supposed to be a nightmare.
I think it defies genre. I think there's beauty, there's comedy,
exactly.
There's nightmare, there's tragedy, there's all of it. I don't get just one thing out of Twin Peaks. Has moments of absolute horror and beauty, and it has moments of comedy where I'm like, this is the funniest thing on TV. That was what was so great about it. It contained so many emotions.
Yeah, no,
and that's
I agree.
David Lynch. Like I have a hard time pigeonholing or reducing him to just one like tone palette, because he works with so many of them all at once.
I mean, I guess to be honest, then like if you look at it like that, then like horror is just a genre that I don't like, but I want to like. And like the films that I do like that like could kind of loosely fit into that genre typically divide the genre, because I don't. Suspiria to me isn't a horror film, really. It is technically in terms of like it's like that's the genre that it's in, but it's not really a horror film to me, because it's more a visual art piece. It's just like, I mean, like even like the way the blood splatters in Suspiria literally splatters into like Rorschach type patterns, like where like literally at one point like this girl's blood drips from her body on the ground, and it forms the pattern that looks like a witch flying on a broom kind of thing. If you kind of vaguely see, but it doesn't look exactly like that. It's like a Rorschach pattern type thing. And he does that all throughout the movie. Like even the blood splatter is supposed to be evocative. He uses a lot of like shadows and light and like color changes and like these massive like lighting things. And like I said, it was the last one shot in Technicolor, so it has this color scheme that you just can't replicate in digital, no matter how hard you try. But yeah, I don't know. It's like to me like horror isn't really a genre I like that much, I guess, because like I find it boring and repetitive. Slasher films are boring as hell. Like I watch a lot of them because I'm always looking for something that's decent. I'm always looking for one, because it's a genre I want to like, but I never find it all that interesting. You know, the last one I watched, I think I watched that Thanksgiving movie not that long ago, like before the end of the year. I watched that movie one night, and like it was like one of the least bad horror films I've seen in a while, but it still isn't like anything great. It's still kind of boring. It's very similar to like Scream or something like that, you know. Like Scream isn't a bad movie, but it's not, you know.
Oh, it took me 3 tries to watch it, because that's back when you had the video store. Me and my mom rented one night. We put it on. We start to watch it. The phone scene where he starts calling the house. It was so creepy. We both turned it off and we took it back to the video store. Another time, I tried again. I was with friends. We added it to the pile. We put it in. We tried again. I could not pass the phone scene again. I'm like, this is too scary. I'm not gonna be able to watch this. I'm already scared. Then finally, another time, I was on a date with the guy, and we were at his house, and he wanted to watch it, and I'm like, okay. He's like, I'll sit here. I'll hold your head, whatever. So we got past the phone scene. And oh my God, I was laughing the whole way through the rest. It wasn't even a horror movie. It was so much fun. I can't believe that I let that one little scene stop me from experiencing the movie.
Yeah.
And then I love all the scary movies afterwards too. The Wayans one.
It's much more of an action comedy movie after that point, after that first initial scene.
Yeah, it was just that first scene was truly horror. It was so scary I couldn't even finish the movie.
Yeah, and it actually there's this weird little like film that Trauma made. Actually, Trauma made that film that's called There's Nothing Out There, that's actually like that Scream kind of ripped off a lot. It's really, really funny. It's the very first like horror parody kind of thing, like Scream, where it's like a self-aware horror movie type thing, and that movie is so good. I definitely I have it on the Plex server. Like, but we should watch it. It's not. It's like there's nothing scary about it, but it's got some really great set pieces and it's got some really good humor in it. Yeah. I don't know. I always grew up like we always rented horror movies like from the video store and stuff.
My sister and her friends rented them, and I hate it. It was like the Friday 13th and My Bloody Valentine and Sleepaway Camp or something, and I would hear them, and they'd have slumber parties, and they'd play them all night. And I would hear them in the other room, and they were scary. Just listen, it was people getting chopped up with axes and chainsaws and screaming. And then my sister and her friends would giggle and laugh. I'm like, what is going? I can't even look. Like, just hearing these movies has me creeped out. I can't even imagine looking at the TV screen right now. And the one time I did, it was a chainsaw. It was somebody get chopped up with a chainsaw. And so I can't my little like child brain could not take those movies as a kid.
I don't like a single
Jaws was scary. You don't like what?
I said I don't like a single Friday the 13th movie. I don't. The very first Nightmare on Elm Street and the third one are okay. And also the one that's like the one where Freddy comes into the real world. That one's actually really funny. It's not scary at all. It's just like it's like a parody of.
That's the other thing about horror. If they're not scary, then they're comedy, and I laugh my ass off. They're like really trashy comedy, and they're hysterical to make fun of. That's the other kind of horror that I like. Like
the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is definitely like a creepy film because of how much it feels like a snuff film kind of thing. But it's kind of, I mean, I don't really feel one way or another about it. Like, it's not a movie that I think is particularly the original. It's like Neurojack, and we've talked pretty thoroughly about you know, like the zombie films like Night of the Living Dead and stuff like that. Night of the Living Dead is a great movie, but it's not scary at all. It's more of like social commentary. You know, the best horror films aren't really horror films, is what I'm saying. So
it wasn't based on a true story, was it?
I mean, I think it was loosely based on Ed Gein. I think like Ed Gein, but I don't think it's not really. There's a ton of horror movies.
Partially inspired by Ed Gein, but not necessarily based on. And another person, Elmer Wayne Henley.
Yeah. A bunch of horror film villains are based on Ed Gein, though.
See, that's what I find creepy is the real life. Like there was a movie we were at a ski lodge or something one night. We rented a stack of videos. We were trapped in the lodge. We were going to do movies all weekend, and one of them was Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. I have no idea
that movie's fucked up.
How that ended? Oh my god,
that movie's fucked up.
I can't watch shit like that.
Dude, I understand. Like that movie is fucked up. It really is.
It ruined my whole weekend. Like that one, I didn't even finish it. I was like in the other room, but that just the part I saw ruined my entire weekend. Like in this little lodge thing.
Yeah, I get that.
A Doctor Who movie?
That is a messed up movie. That is like one of those movies that like it's not even pleasant to watch. Like, you know, there's artfulness in it, but it's not. There's nothing about that movie that's fun at all. It's a very dreary and like just like dark, depressing. I hate that kind. I don't really like that kind of horror either, where it's just like the whole thing is just nothing but like. I think horror has to like if it's gonna be ultra dark or something, it has to have some kind of visual poetry to it. It has to have something that's like something. There has to be something beautiful about it, like to make it truly horrifying in a way. And like in movies like that are like Henry of Portrait of a Serial Killer, it's technically, I mean, on a technical level, it's a good movie, but it's still not enjoyable or pleasant to watch at all. Like I also like. I watched. I didn't even get through. I didn't watch the whole thing. I stopped watching it halfway through. It's a movie called a Serbian film. Like, never watched that. It's just. By the time I got like a third of the way through it, I could already tell where this is going. You know, I can already tell like, okay, yeah, I get it. This movie's gonna get just more and more disturbing until it just ends. It's just gonna end on something like ultra disturbing. Then I read about it later and I was like, yeah, I found out. Yeah, it's really disturbing. on the other hand, like there's a movie called Martyrs.
Oh
That's
no,
also-
nope. Stop. I'm gonna have to end the stream. This is going. See, this is why I don't watch horror movies. My mind,
sorry.
I'm Satanist, but my mind cannot go in these. I deliberately stay out of this kind of territory.
Well, I wasn't going to describe it.
Don't. People can Google it. I'm asking. Please take my guidance. I'm asking you to take your
That's
cue
fine.
from me on this.
I'm sorry. I didn't know mentioning the movie would trigger you. I'm sorry.
It's the content of the movie which you were about to describe, but I would like to just move on.
No, I wasn't going to describe it though.
Oh, I thought you said you were.
No, I was not.
Even Frank, no. Like, come on. Like, if the monkey is saying it.
Did you see the American one or the original? Or the French?
Okay, I would like to not talk about this topic. How hard is it to get some support for that?
Oh, sorry. I was just asking a question.
Okay. Do y'all want to wrap up? We've been going an hour. I would just like to end the stream.
Okay, sorry. I don't know what I did.
Dolbez, you have anything you want to wrap up with?
I'm tired. If that
is it evening over there?
Yes, it's 10 p.m. or 10:15.
Oh Lord. Okay. Oh yeah. Let me see if there's other streams.
Or
if you want to open one, Chris.
Starts at 9 p.m. And so
no, I'm going back to sleep.
Flo, man, my God, Flo's been going like all night, all day. Oh God, if y'all are interested in him, Flo's just started another stream. Wow, this is like his third stream in 24 hours. It seems like. Talcott's coming up, etc. Jesse's live now with what's an animist? Natural law animist, David Greenberg. It sounds familiar. So anyway, there's stuff like that to watch, and I may be here this evening, but definitely tomorrow at the usual time. So, other than that,
yeah, well, I'm gonna go sleep now.
Okay, well, you have a good one, and we'll see you again.
Yeah,
I'm also going to sleep now.
Okay, take care. Good night, Dolbez. All right, take care. Feel better. All righty. And probably stuff going in the Discord later. What's today? Thursday? Yeah. I may end up doing an evening stream. We'll see how it goes. So have a good rest of your day and see you in the streets whenever that is.